All right, let's get right into this. Basically, there's going to be 10. I'm actually going to give you 11. I'm going to give you a bonus round one, but 10 likely changes essentially to the SSA going forward as a result of the findings of DOGE, along with President Trump kind of pushing for things to move forward. I'm collecting these from what other prior Republicans have said that were kind of advisors to President Trump in the prior administration, also kind of collecting things that have been said over the years related to what Trump would like to achieve. So as a result, these are rules and or changes to the rules that you'll likely see related to President Trump being in office. I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go through them more in detail. But for those people who have the squirrel mind, I'm going to go ahead and give you the quick list right now. So number one of the rules that are likely to change as a result of, SSA, OIG, DOGE, and Donald Trump. Number one, gradual transition to less hybrid work and then back to more full work schedule offices. Number two, changing the 5-year vocational assessment rule for vocational allowances to a 10-year rule. Okay. Number three, requiring a new computer single program integration system platform to be used that cross communicates with all levels and all functions of the SSA. So basically, Michelle King is the current acting commissioner. Once they go ahead and get Frank Bisignano set up to be the full commissioner, then essentially he will, I'm sure, begin the process of integrating that. Next one, integrating artificial intelligence into phone call answering for the 800 number. Next one, requiring an SSA 7162 letter every year after you turn 80 years old, which is basically the Are You Alive letter, respond just within 60 days so we keep your benefits going. Next one, requiring those who are not seeing regular medical treatment to be fully reassessed every 3 years. Bottom line is that people who are not seeing doctors, for whatever reason it is, are going to need to do better at benefit upkeep. Some people don't go see doctors because they hate doctors. Some people don't go see doctors because they're afraid, the travel costs of this, there's cost reasons. Some people don't get, even though they have Medicare and Medicaid. Some people don't go see doctors because they're like, my impairment's not going to improve. It's not going to, it is what it is, blah, blah, blah. Those people are going to be reviewed more often. Next one, creating a list of new jobs to be integrated into the DOT at the light and sedentary level that are going to be based on new technology changes and requirements of these new modern age jobs. This is the one I'm most afraid of. This will make it much harder for people under 50 to be found disabled. Jobs like at-home computer administrator, at-home digital infrastructure tester, like video games, POS systems, CMS systems. CMS systems are client management systems. POS systems are like point of sale systems. You put your card on the thing and it takes the money. And then also an at-home call administrator. Those types of jobs will effectively end vocational allowances for people under 50 in most situations. Next one, getting rid of the double taxation on retired people's benefits. You guys know about that, the 25K, 34K, the 50%, and then the 80% taxation rates. So you know about that. Next one, transferring IRS agents to the SSA to assist with the backlog. Okay, so basically they spent a lot of money to put people in the IRS to tax the American people even more, which was not a popular move because we thought that we were going to be seeing from President Biden more for the Social Security Administration. Said we saw President Biden go more towards putting more IRS agents out there to audit more people, which kind of pissed off all the people who were doing really, really shitty as a result of his less than wonderful economy situation. So that was a backfire on top of a backfire. All right, next one. Using those same IRS agents to finalize the list needed to pay the Social Security Fairness Act, GPO, and WEP benefits. It was really weird when the SSA came out and said, it's going to take us around a year to figure out the list of people who should be receiving these benefits. And now they keep coming out with updates, which is, hey, if you think you should apply for potential GPO benefits, yada, yada, yada. So it's an interesting situation that they came out with that. So just as a heads up. Now, with that said, the next one. All right, and I believe this will happen essentially in 2028, right before they go into the next presidential election to give Republicans the boost. Raising the pay rates for the different grades and steps. So as you know, the government employees, they're based off of grades. So like grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 grades. And then each one of those grades has 10 steps, right? So bottom line is you can go ahead and increase your step over a year, blah, blah, blah. And then your grade is based off of how much education you have, how much, basically, experience, knowledge, are you special, whatever, going into the government. So I think that what will happen is once he achieves significantly cutting down on the amount of employees the federal government has, he will then boost the pay of those individuals across the board, the GS schedule, to increase what those government employees are actually going to be earning, which then makes it more likely that people want to work for the government. Real quick, Royalty 72, thank you for the $2 donation. I super appreciate that. That's awesome. So let me go through these a little bit slower now that you have kind of like the 11 list here of essentially what Trump and Elon are pushing likely to do in the not too distant future when it comes to the Social Security Administration. Gradual transition to less hybrid. You saw with politicians, they already know what they're going to do. They already have the law that they have to go ahead and end the contract that essentially Commissioner Martin O'Malley put in place in either his last day or the last couple of days that he was in office when he attempted to, essentially, do something nice for the employees of the SSA. Now, which was allowing them to continue to do their at-home work, which he signed with the unions. Now, you are going to see the unions flapping and being upset and very angry in the not too distant future because they're going to be starting to pull back those employees into the office for the SSA, even though they're not following the same regulations that the other agencies are. The VA, the SSA, they're kind of exempt for some of the executive orders that were done. But you're going to see more and more of that occurring. Next one, changing the 5-year vocational assessment rule. So basically, the advisors of Trump who were in during Trump's last, cycle when he was in charge as the prior president of 45, they basically said, look, they didn't like the change to going from 15 years of past work review down to 5 years. They'd rather go to the past 10 years. I like past 5 years because, frankly, it's just a faster, easier claim. And to be honest with you, most of you guys have no idea how to do your old jobs that you did 7, 8 years ago. You don't even know where you worked 7, 8 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I know that there are structural assessments that say, yes, people remember what their jobs were 10 years ago. But if I said to you right now, if I said to you, take 30 seconds to think of where you worked in 2015, you would be sitting there going, I mean, I think over here. And then, of course, a few will be like, I know, I've worked at the same company for my entire life. And, that's just cheating. But, bottom line is, if you guys had multiple jobs, you'd have to be like, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe a little of this, maybe a little of that, so it is what it is. Remember, we used to do 15 years. Nobody knew what the hell they did 15 years ago. Nobody knows that. That's way too long. All right. Next one, when it comes to essentially requiring a new computer single program integration system, the SSA has a ton of computer system programs that exist in computers that don't all talk to each other. Some of them do, some of them don't. They got to get it all under one label, under one program, under one operating system. They got to get it done. They got to make it work so that everything can be read and understood by the US Treasury and the IRS. Okay. Next one, requiring the SSA, integrating the artificial intelligence 800 phone number. So the thing is this, artificial intelligence, I know some of you hate it because of religious purposes, and that's fine. It is what it is. But the bottom line is that's taking over. That will be basically taking over people answering questions from the SSA in a massive way. Why? Because artificial intelligence will get to the point where the local field office people will not be able to answer questions at the same correct rate as artificial intelligence when you ask the question. So ultimately, a lot of you feel, and I have seen, that when you call the SSA field offices and you ask a medium difficulty question, you will usually get, if you call 3 times, 3 different answers, or less than 3 different answers. But it's not because they agreed. It's usually because, you call them and then right when they answer, the phone hangs up. I'm not getting into that, but there's an issue there. Next one, requiring the SSA 7162 letter every year after 80 years old. When you're 80 years old, you're in kind of a unique age condition situation. I can see that one of the major things to fix, call out, if you will, those potential people who are older from still being alive is that if you reach out and say, okay, you have to respond to us within 60 days, we are the SSA. Otherwise, we're going to cut off your benefits. And the moment somebody loses their benefits, you better believe they are going to call that Social Security field office. Now, next one, requiring those who are not seeing regular medical treatment. Bottom line is this. We are evolving and we are at the point where you now have to do benefit upkeep. Okay, that's for the VA benefits, LTD benefits, Social Security disability benefits, etc. You have to do benefit upkeep. Some programs require less upkeep. Retirement requires less upkeep. Other programs require more upkeep. You cannot and you will not successfully retain your benefits without doing upkeep maintenance on them. It's just the future we're going into. I know 30 years ago, people could get on benefits and the government wouldn't check back in with them. I know it was different. I know that some people found disabled 20 years ago would never be found disabled today. I know that. I get it. We don't live in that world anymore. Next one, creating a list of new jobs to be integrated into the DOT. All right, so the main thing is, basically, sedentary, light, and medium for people under 50. Those are the jobs that are usually used to kick people, to the curb, be the element 5 cleaver to winning disability benefits. If they created modern jobs and assimilated them into the dictionary of occupational titles, the major problem would be that pretty much if you were under 50, you would have to be extremely disabled in order to be able to be found disabled, because you wouldn't have the vocational option of a vocational allowance anymore. It would cut out a vocational allowance, and all you would be left with, and also, pretty much under 50, the grid out isn't really helpful. So the point is, you wouldn't have grid out option to be found disabled under 50. You wouldn't have vocational option allowance to be found under, disabled under 50. You'd only be left with a listing and a compassion allowance listing. Compassion allowance listings are the ones where you're either going to pass away from it or you're going to be bedbound, right? It's just, you're extremely bad. Listings are marked severity, which means severe. But remember, amputation, marked severity is either you're amputated, both hands are gone, or both feet are gone from the ankle down, or one leg up to half the hip. So the bottom line is, just to be very clear, to be very straightforward with you so you understand it, just to be very clear with this thing, you have to understand that is probably what they're going to be doing to people under 50, which means no attorneys will touch people under 50. Next one, getting rid of the double taxation on retired people's benefits. You guys already know about that. You know what's happening. Basically, people pay a tax that's called their retirement benefits for the future. Then when they go ahead and work when they're older, they go ahead and tax those retirement benefits based off of how much they earn. It's double taxation. It's immoral. They put it in 1983. It sucks. They're going to try and he's already said he's going to get rid of it. Okay. Next one, transferring the IRS agents to the SSA to assist with the backlog. So we're at 1.12 million backlog. Okay. The backlog is kind of stuck / getting worse. So the bottom line is, instead of having, tens of thousands of IRS agents being created, they should have put a lot of those people into the Social Security Administration to get rid of the backlog to get the SSA back on the horse. They didn't do that. President Biden turned out to be the massive tax and spend president. He was not what a lot of people expected him to be, which is like the hero of Social Security. He was quite the opposite of that. He did give us Commissioner Martin O'Malley, he did an amazing job, Commissioner Keisha Causey as well. But he was not the person who was rah-rah-rahing to get more funding to the Social Security Administration. In fact, with a lot of the bills that he presented, like Social Security funding didn't even make it to the second round. It was kicked to the curb real quick. So that was a main problem with Biden. I think Democrats will be a little bit smarter in the future about who they pick when it comes to essentially future presidential options. They can't go with, Harris, because it's just not, it's not there. The talent isn't there. And then they recently kicked Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who stepped down to apply to become the DNC chair. They kicked him in the teeth and didn't give him the DNC chair spot, which, to be fair, would have been the smartest thing they could do, because they needed a DNC chair that basically could promote the idea of two main things, race and Social Security. Those are the two main leverage points against the Republican Party. Now, race isn't as strong as it used to be, because, if you call somebody racist in America, it doesn't really mean anything anymore. And then, of course, Social Security benefits is still a good fear tactic that the politicians will use, especially on the Democrat side, against the Republicans. The best spot, the best position the Democrats could have been in was to put Commissioner Martin O'Malley in the DNC chair so that he could throw low uppercut swings at Republicans. They didn't do that. They put a totally different person who has nothing to do with Social Security. It was not a smart political move. However, we will see what they do with Commissioner Martin O'Malley going into the future. Okay, next thing, because they got to use him for something. He did an amazing job with they got to use him for something. All right, next thing, using those same IRS agents to finalize the list needed to pay the Social Security Fairness Act, GPO, and WEP benefits. So as you know, Biden passed the Social Security Fairness Act because the Fraternal Order of Police went down to Trump. Trump said he would pass it. So then Biden said, shit, no, we're passing it. We can't have the Republicans winning all those votes on Social Security benefits. Then, as it was passed in the last moments of his presidency, bottom line was basically the SSA then came out not that long thereafter and said, it's going to take us about a year to figure this out. The story I had received was that because we were able to figure out the list that they needed to go ahead and pay the COVID checks out for COVID stimulus checks, that they were, take a month and a half, they should have it done. That's what I was told. And then obviously they then, I guess, put the brakes on that and said, no, it's going to take us about a year. And it's going to take us about a year because we have to really by hand go in and figure this stuff out. Um, to be fair, something happened there. I don't know what, but something happened there. Okay. All right. Next thing. Essentially raising the pay rates for the different grades, the 15 grades. So basically, the government employees would get a higher pay rate. Once you make the government more efficient and you have fewer people and you don't have such a big bill to pay for all those people, and remember, the federal government is like the largest employer. Once you have a much smaller company that's more efficient, you can go ahead and pay your employees more, which means they increase the talent pool that's in the government. What do I mean by that? So everybody knows that people who have higher talent require usually more money. That's how it goes, right? Higher intelligence, higher money that's actually paid to them because they're going to require it. Otherwise, they're going to go to some other employer who wants them. It is chasing after the talent. The money follows the talent, right? That's kind of the bottom line with this situation. So as a result of that, you will see them trying to foster better talent as if this government, the United States federal government, was sort of like a private corporation. That, I think, is the design of where they're going with this particular thing. All right. With that said, we have covered 11 items as to where this entire system is likely to go. What are the things that they're likely to pass? Yes, I see Vicky Gandy saying, what about SSI? I stayed away from that topic because I want to do an entire video on that because there's a lot of changes that I think are coming to that. SSI benefits, as you know, are supplemental security income, Title 16, passed in the 1970s by Nixon, which is weird. I don't know why he'd be the president that passed the most liberal program in the history of the human race, under the Social Security Administration or under the federal government. But anyways, Nixon passed it. There's a lot of changes, I think, coming to that program. And the first ones are going to be likely entrants, which are, of course, your asylum seekers, your refugees, your, individuals that were used and abused, yada, yada. So bottom line is I'll do a whole video on that, but I think that is going to be one of the main programs that they start to curtail because they probably, in my opinion, at the Republican Party, want to make Social Security benefits a pay-to-play game more across the spectrum. There can be people who pay to play for somebody else, a spouse, a child, stuff like that. Because remember, Republicans tend to be more family-oriented people. They want to have kids. They want to have that more classic, traditional family, etc. Whereas like the modern-day Democrats, I don't think they follow the trend of like the shaving their head, divorcing their husbands, divorcing, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But obviously, in the bloodline of that logic, right, is less of the traditional family. And so, I think realistically, the Republicans are going to try and push SSI down and reshape it into something else, which is, there's some spots that need changing, but the grand majority of it, I think, is a really good idea. And I think the reason why Nixon passed it, which is what I've heard from multiple people, although I've heard some counter arguments to it, is that Nixon needed a program for people to basically keep them from stealing from other people because they were in a state of poverty, needing a poverty check. And of course, what is SSI? SSI is a benefit of last resort. It is a lot of things. It's not just a disability check. It's not just an old age check. It's not just an entrance check. It's a benefit of last resort. All right. They basically give it to you when you don't fit into anything else and they need to give you something to be able to survive. So, all right. With that said, please go to bed. Have a wonderful, wonderful, amazing night, a wonderful weekend as well. I will catch you a little bit later. Please remember to hit that like button. There's only 141 likes in here. Hit that like button and please remember to subscribe. Also, head over to Google. Type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there on the Google page. Come on, help me out. And with that said, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions for free. And then, of course, the mini contract for a private session is below. You fill out the contract, and then you send in the payment details, and then boop, we put you on the schedule for a 1 hour contract. We usually do about an hour, 10 hour, and 15 minutes for each one of those. That way, everybody always gets a little bit more. So that way, they feel like they got even more. I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful night, and we will go from there. Sleep well and be very kind to yourself. Thank you so much. All right, bye bye.